So I like to call the class the fascinating story of the scroll of Esther, because it is fascinating, when we read it. If we're lucky and we have a rabbi that can read it very quickly, usually my husband, I remember years that he had to read it very quickly. He did it even, that was really a record, 18 minutes, 20 minutes to read the whole thing. The idea is to know how to read it if you read it quickly, but to say each word, because you don't want to skip words, right? When you're speaking about when you read it in Hebrew. It takes about an hour, 45 minutes, whatever. And we read it and the whole story seems like, wow, like one after another. And it just happened, but it took many years. And as far as I know, 12 years or so. And when we read it quickly, and like I said, in an hour and a half, whatever you read the English, however long it takes you, it seems so obvious. Yeah, it was this, it became a miracle. But when something happens slowly, it's not so obvious always that it's a miracle. And that's what we're trying to learn and understand. We're going to learn and understand the whole as much as we can. And when we look in our lives as well, so many things that we have as miracles, we don't realize that it's a miracle because it's just something that happens every day, and we don't realize when you go back in history and then you remember something or you learn, oh, wow, that was a big miracle. Just because it happened a long time ago, when it's happening to us now, many times we're not as appreciative, not as grateful. That's just how humans are. And as we learned last week, that this month we started, today is the 2nd of Adar. The month of Adar is a month of simcha, of joy, happiness. Many miracles should happen to us more as it happened in the time of Mordechai and Esther. And it's just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So the story of Purim takes us back, just to be exact, about 2,500 years ago, 2,450 years ago. It was the 5th century BCE, before the Common Era. And it happened after, hello, Jeanette. Great to see you here. Good
evening.
Thank you. Yeah, to all of us as well. It happened, girls, during the time of, after the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash, the first temple. Although when we look in the year, we had Hanukkah first, then we have Purim, and many times we get confused and we think that Hanukkah happened before Purim. No, but Hanukkah happened after the second temple, during the time of the second temple, second Beit HaMikdash. Purim happened before. So Purim happened when the Jewish people, when the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, and during those 70 years before the Jews went back to build the second one. And here we are, the Megillah starts, Vahi b'mei Achashverosh. It was in the days of Achashverosh. Achashverosh was a king of 127 countries, and so on and so forth. There are commentators that are telling us that during those years, the whole world consisted of those countries. So either it was the half of the world he was a king of, but it could have been half of the world, but not the whole world was populated. And that's why it was such a big tzara, such a scary thing when the decree came about to kill all the Jews, God forbid, in one day. They even didn't have where to run away to. It says that Hashem made a chesed, a kindness with the Jewish people, that we are spread all around the world. God willing, till the Beit HaMikdash will be built again and Mashiach will come very, very soon, amen. But the kindness is that we are spread around the world, as if we are, God forbid, persecuted in one place of the world, there's another place to run away to. So when it was hard for the Jews, hard is not the right word to say, terrible during World War II, the Jewish people were able to escape to other countries. When we were expelled from Spain, the Jews that were able to escape somewhere else. But in the time of Achashverosh, if you ruled over the whole world, there was no place to escape to. And that was very, very, very dangerous, very serious. So to make the long story short, Achashverosh is making a party to show everybody who he is. I want to give you a little bit of insight. Who was Achashverosh? Achashverosh wasn't a king from a royal family. He did not come from a royal family. He was a simple soldier that bought the royalty with fighting a lot, with killing people, with winning the war, with acquiring money, and he got to be a king. Now, who did he marry? He was married, as we know, to Vashti. Who was Vashti? Vashti was the granddaughter of the king of Nebuchadnezzar, of the king who destroyed the first Beit HaMikdash. He was the Babylonian king of Bavel. That was the nation that had destroyed the first Beit HaMikdash. And what happened during that night when they destroyed the Beit HaMikdash? They destroyed the Beit HaMikdash and so on and so forth. During the night when the new kingdom was coming to effect, Bavel was finished, and the new kingdom was coming to effect, and that was the king of Madai, Persia, where Achashverosh was from. What happened during that time when they came in to Bavel, to the Babylonian, if I may say, the Armon, the palace, and Nebuchadnezzar was killed, and Persia came in and killed everybody and took it over and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, those wars, how much bloodshed was there. Achashverosh was a soldier, and he found Vashti. Vashti was a 12-year-old girl. She was, as I said, the granddaughter. She had royal blood in her. She was the granddaughter of the wicked king Nebuchadnezzar. And Achashverosh decided not to kill her, and he will just marry her. And that's what happened. And then he acquired some more stuff. We won't go into all the details, and he became the king. And now he's the king. He's so happy. He wants to show everybody who he is. It's important for us to remember those facts, because you will see later it will come. We'll have to understand what happened. I'm not telling you everything what happened that night. There were many more signs and many more things that happened and so on. I'm saying when Nebuchadnezzar was killed, Achashverosh took Vashti and so on. And here he's making a party, and he's inviting everybody to come. And that party was it was something to show. He wanted to show everybody how rich he was. But the sad part also was that he wanted to show everyone that he was able to win the Jewish people. As we know that Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple was not built back yet. And they had the gold, the silver, all the beautiful dishes that used to be in Beit HaMikdash, used to be in the Holy Temple. And at his party, he wanted to show his riches, not just his riches in gold and silver and diamonds and so on, but also his power, that he is able to have all the things of Beit HaMikdash, because that was something very, very special, very holy, very special to all the nations. And here we are. It's almost like going, God forbid, to an enemy's party, enemy's house. Somebody who came in, I don't want to say to your house, but he came in, he stole stuff from someone, and that someone, person by the name B, stole stuff from a person by the name A. And then the person B is making a party and inviting the person from the house of A, and he's putting on his table and in the house, he's displaying all the stuff he stole and he took from person A, and he wants person A to come to his house and with many other people to enjoy the party and see all the things that he took from his house. That's very painful. That's very sad. So it's basically to go to the party of this Rosh Achashverosh and see how he's using things from Beit HaMikdash and be there and be silent. So anyway, it was a big test for the Jews. And the Jewish people weren't supposed to go. But it was a big test because some people said, well, we're not in Israel. We are not in our own country. We are under the ruler of Persia right now, and we have to listen to what they're saying. He is making a party. He's inviting everyone. If we're not going to come, we're going to spit in his face. He's going to get angry with us. And then there were the people that said, the leader of the generation, Mordechai Tzaddik, the Jews said, no, don't go to the party because it's only a test. It's only a test. Hashem wants to see how loyal we are to him. We shouldn't go to the party. It was not the right place for a Jewish person to be. Food and everything. It wasn't the right place to be. There are many, many reasons, many commentaries why it was not the right place for them to be, and we can only imagine. And unfortunately, well, we should start with the good part. Fortunately, many, many did not go, but unfortunately, many did go. And now it's interesting how the Torah is speaking and the Torah is saying how everybody was able to go and they gave so many drinks and everybody was able to drink and eat and so on and so forth. And now all of a sudden the Megillah speaks about Vashti, the queen. And here we are. The Megillah is telling us that Vashti, the queen, also made a party. And I guess in those years it was interesting that they made a party separate. Achashverosh made a big party for all the men, for all the male. And Vashti made a party for all the women. And here we see that it was very important that it happened then. We'll see what happened. During the party, Achashverosh got drunk. Nice, not nice, but that's the fact. When somebody is drunk, a guy, a man, what is in his mind? Somebody who is full of knowledge, somebody who is full of Torah, somebody who is full of wisdom. When they get drunk, they're not in control, right? So what comes out? The things that you know that are special, that are kind. I watched many times when people would say l'chaim, people take mashke and they say l'chaim, you know, like a Simchas Torah, on Purim, and you can see what is in the person's mind. Somebody who is a kind person, I would like to say a kind man, because I kind of would like to see women get drunk, but anyway, somebody who's a kind person, knowledgeable person, usually when they get drunk, they would say words of Torah, they will say kind things to people. I know my father, Zazan should be well, when he was younger, and he would say l'chaim, and he would get a little, I don't like to say the word drunk, but a little bit high, he would hug everybody and kiss everybody and give blessings, and, because that's his nature, I know there was a year that is known that the Rebbe took during Purim, if I may say l'chaim. The Rebbe said a lot of words of Torah, like a lot of, you were able to hear things that maybe he wouldn't reveal otherwise, or, but here is Achashverosh, a wicked person, a person who takes advantage of people, a person is, all the thing is just to show how good I am, how great I am. What did he decide during the party? That he wants to see Vashti. And he wants to show everybody how beautiful Vashti is. Now, let's see the words in the Megillah, what it's saying. He says, in the middle of the party, he says, like on the seventh day, he says, Ketov leva melech bayain, when he was like really drunk after 7 days and so on and so forth, he called his minister, he says, please go bring Vashti. And what does it say in the Pasuk? Lehavi et Vashti hamalka lifnei hamelech, bring Vashti, beketer malchut. In her, keter means in the crown, in the royal crown, show everybody how beautiful she is. What does it mean to bring her with her, crown? Well, the queen should come. what is it, a crown and not a crown? Well, obviously, if you tell the queen to come, when the queen appears in front of people, she would come with a crown, especially it's a party and so on and so forth. But the commentators are telling us that he told the request was that she should come beketer malchut, just with her crown, which means nude, naked, just a crown and nothing else. Because he wanted to show everybody, because that's what his mind went in, to show everybody, all the men in his kingdom, all the men who were there in the party, how beautiful his queen is. Now we know what happened. They came to Vashti to call her, tell her to come. And then it says that Vashti refused. Why did she refuse to come? Do you think she was a moral woman? Do you think she didn't want to come because she thought, oh, that's not nice, that's not modest, I should appear in front of everybody not wearing anything but a crown? No, she wanted to show everybody how she looked. She was not a woman with a lot of ethics at all. But here came the time that Hashem had to pay her back for everything she has done, for many, many bad things that she has done. What have she done? Some of the terrible things she has done is, since she was a queen, she had whatever she wanted had to be done for her, right? Those years, like you have slaves. She had many girls, many women that would work for her. To this, all kind of stuff. And obviously, you couldn't refuse. If you refuse a queen or a king in those years, they kill you without asking, without nothing, obviously. No judgment, no nothing, as we know, unfortunately. So she made a lot of girls work for her, Jewish girls. And she would torture them. She would make them work on Shabbos and Jewish holidays, specifically because she knew that they couldn't work there. She couldn't take other girls. That didn't matter for them if they work Sunday or they work Shabbos. She would make the Jewish girls work for her, wearing nothing, naked, just to make them feel low, to make them feel embarrassed, and so on and so forth. Many, many terrible things. And here came the time to repay back. You made Jewish girls work that way to humiliate them. Here you are. Now you have to appear like that. Well, as we said, she probably didn't mind to walk like that. But as she was getting ready to go, God said, no, you are judged now. You made so many people suffer. You cannot go. You're going to have to. And as she is getting undressed and looking at her body, as we know, she got pimples, she got leprosy, she got different things. Many commentaries, what grew on her body, that there was no way that she was able to come out like that. And she told the guys, no, tell the king that I'm not coming. And here they come back to the king. To make the long story short, instead of him asking, why did she refuse, and so on and so forth, he was so drunk, he was so furious. How did she disobey me? Why didn't she come? And here what happens? He's asking his ministers, who were the sons of Haman and Haman himself, what should I do now? And what does he say? He was the king of Persia. It's interesting how things did not change, how chauvinist they were in those years, in those countries. That country still are. They told him, if you're going to let it go, and you're going to say, okay, she didn't come, she had a reason, we'll find out the reason, whatever, to be normal, right? To find the reason, then all the women will not listen to their husbands. And they're going to say, look, the king called the queen to come to the party, and she refused and she didn't come. So why should we listen to our husbands? What a smart analogy, right? Anyway, so he said, so what should I do? He said, you know what you should do? You should assassinate her, and you should send letters to all the people in your kingdom telling them that you guys should know that this and this what happened. and she was assassinated, and we should learn from it that all the women have to give a lot of respect to their husbands and listen to them and so on and so forth. It's very interesting to see later on. We'll see how Achashverosh reacted when Esther was his queen. As we all know, Esther became the queen later. When she asked for something, did he tell her as well, you've got to listen to him because I'm the man? But here, to Vashti, he said, fine. She was killed. And the party finishes. And he wrote letters to everybody. And the king wakes up after his wine, after he's, sober, everything is good. And he goes, what happened? What did I do? Why did I kill her? What did she do that I had to kill her? Doesn't make any sense. He was very, very upset. And he put Haman down. Haman was very high with his ministers, because he found out that he was the one that told him. So he was so angry at him, and he said, okay. He brought him down, and he was now very, very sad. Very, very sad. He didn't know what to do. He doesn't have a queen. I'm trying to remind you, we spoke a few minutes ago that Achashverosh he became king not because he came from a royal family. So he needed something to hold on to. And what was one of the things he was able to hold on to was Vashti. Because Vashti, she was wicked. She was a granddaughter of a very wicked person. But she had royalty. She had royal blood in her from Nebuchadnezzar and so on. And here, he killed her. And he knew that he needed somebody from a royal family, but what should he do? He was really, really upset. He didn't know what to do, and he'd asked his younger ministers, what should I do? And they gave him a good advice. Well, they thought it was good advice. They said, you know what you should do? And that was, as far as we know, the first beauty contest in the world. Send messengers to the people in all the countries and ask all of the girls, all of the maiden girls that are not married, to come to you, to come to the palace. They can be in the palace for a year. They can beautify themselves, put creams and nice clothing and nice food and so on and so forth to make themselves even more and more beautiful. And then they would come to you. They'll come in the evening, go out in the morning, and you'll decide if you like them. Then the girl that you like, you'll choose to be your new queen. If you don't like her, she goes back home, and you have the other one, and you'll have a long or a short beauty contest whenever you decide. And he liked it, and he said, great. He sent messengers, and now they're all looking for a new queen. Meanwhile, it's very interesting. The Megillah is telling us a story. And Megillah is telling us, describing Mordechai. And what is Megillah is telling us, and the Rebbe is learning from it, something very special that all of us should learn from. The Torah is not just saying there was a Jewish man that lived in Shushan, his name was Mordechai. And usually when we read that passage, we say it all out loud. Ish Yehudi, a Jewish man, was in Shushan Habira. Yehudi also from, there were tribes of Yehuda and Binyamin, the tribes of Israel. So he was from the tribe of Yehuda. Yehudi, Ish Yehudi Aya Shushan Habira, Oshmo Mordechai, was from the tribe of Binyamin. Mordechai ben Yair ben Shmi ben Kish Ish Yemini. Basically, he's telling us who he was. He was a Jewish man. He was from those Jewish people. He was already older, that he went out when the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. 70 years before, he was with that exile. He came out when Nebuchadnezzar had destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, and all of them went to exile and so on. And he was taking care of Hadassah of Esther because she was his niece, because at the war, both of her parents were killed during the time of the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash, and he was taking care of her. Now, the Rebbe is telling us, we're learning something very, very, very powerful here. That is telling us that Mordechai, the Jew, lived in Shushan Habira. He lived in Shushan, the capital. As we said before, was the capital of the world. And who lived over there? Mordechai. And he was Ish Yehudi. He was known. He was seen. He was recognized as Mordechai, the Jew, which means he was not embarrassed being dressed as a Jewish person was dressed in those days. He was not embarrassed, even though he lived in capital, in the Shushan capital, and Jewish people weren't necessarily very glamorous because they left their country. They were in exile there, and he was not hiding. He was not hiding his Jewish identity. He was not hiding his Jewish clothing. He was not hiding his Jewish name, his Jewish culture. And he walked very proud and loud with his beard and with his peot and with his hat and with his kippah and with his clothing and so on and so forth. And that is something very special that we're learning from the Megillah here. That Rebbe is saying that no matter where we live, whether we live in the capital city, where we live, wherever we live, now it's not so, it doesn't matter you live in the capital city or not, but in those years it made a lot of sense. What we mean is we live in the Goyish world. We don't all live in Yerushalayim and Israel. And even those of us who live in Israel, well, our brothers and sisters, right? And so on and so forth. How many people are still, unfortunately, embarrassed to work with a kippah, to work with a skirt, to work with modest clothing and so on, to show everybody, yeah, I'm all Jewish, but I'm a religious Jew. And then we're going to speak about Calgary. It's not always easy. We just flew now with, I mentioned it last week, and those of us maybe that didn't hear, I don't know, Jennifer, if you heard, I remember exactly who was last week. A week and a half ago was the conference of the Shluchot, of the Rebbetzins of Chabad in New York. And guests can come as well, just people, not necessarily Rebbetzins, if I may. And I went to New York, was really nice with Sabrina, who's here today, and Marcia, her sister. And we were there for about a week. It was wonderful. Now, we were sitting in the airport, and both Marcia and Sabrina, I'm sure they don't mind me saying it, they were wearing on their necklace big Magen Davids on their chest. Yeah, here she's showing it. Yeah, and we were wearing long dresses, long skirts. We were very modest, all three of us, Baruch Hashem. And I wasn't wearing a Magen David necklace, but those two sisters were. And we obviously encountered some people that were sitting and waiting that were very obvious people that don't necessarily love Jewish people, and the way they were staring at us and so on. And we were very proud. Yeah, we are Jewish women who weren't shy for what we were saying, and we were eating kosher. We said a blessing, and we had our Magen David necklace on, and so on and so forth. We were wearing, modest clothing, but it's not always easy because you get such stares. Especially if it's, if you're yourself, in the airport, a lot of people, but if you're yourself or so on somewhere, it's not easy. But we have to be proud. We have to work with our head up, because if we're not going to work with our head up and we're not going to protect ourselves that way, and we're not going to show everybody, we have a menorah outside, as we spoke about it during Hanukkah, we are proud Jews, and we walk with the beard and with the pes and with the sheitel and with kippas and with everything, and we're not shy, that we're Yidden. That's what we're learning from Mordechai, how he was, because the place where he was, it was so assimilated then as well, because so many, as we spoke, did go to the party, although the rabbi of the generation, the leader of the generation, said not to. They didn't listen. They went, even though only some years ago the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. For us, we don't even have great-grandparents that saw the Beit HaMikdash. It's over 2,000 years. It's much harder to believe. But here were people that saw in their own eyes, unfortunately, how the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. And still it was hard for them to listen, because they felt, look, we live here now. Who knows if we ever go back to Israel? I know God promised us, but who knows if it will happen? And let's be friends. Let's assimilate. Let's be friends with the people where we live. But we know that it's wrong. And that's why Haman's decree came. But here, Hashem has already prepared refuah lemaka. In Hebrew, you have such a saying, Hashem prepared refuah lemaka. Refuah means the medicine, the cure. Hashem started preparing the cure for the sickness, for the bad thing that's going to happen. So what happened here? What was the cure? What happened? And we know that Vashti lost the kingdom, and now we're looking for a new queen, and now let's see what's going to happen. And we know what happened with Haman. He was angry at Haman. Let's see what's going to happen. So now we've got to going to go faster. We are in chapter 2, and here we are. Esther, which lived with Mordechai, as we said before, it was her uncle, and she was going also, there are commentaries that she was going to marry him and so on. She was very beautiful. And obviously, she didn't want to go. Why would she want to go to the contest, to this contest to marry who? To marry Achashverosh, first of all. Even if you were a normal person, why would you want to marry? Hello, Rosie. Hello, Marina. Why would you want to marry a king?
Hi, Rochel.
Hello, that king. I'm sorry, girls, that you missed the beginning, but whatever we'll get from here is great too, obviously. You can always listen to it later.
Distance call.
To marry a king who killed his first queen because she didn't want to come, didn't try to find out why, and so on. But anyway, it's not a place for a Jewish girl to go, to marry a non-Jewish king, to be in the palace and so on. Obviously, Esther didn't want to go. She wanted to be with Mordechai. But there was a reason. Hashem did want her to go because somebody needed to save the Jewish people. The decree didn't come yet, but as we know, Hashem had prepared. And some people have seen her. People knew, neighbors knew that in this house in Shushan, the capital, lived a beautiful girl, a young girl. And here we are. They told the king, they told the guy who was in charge. And it says, they came, they told her, we want you to come. Esther did not want to go. And it says, Vatilakach Esther al Beit HaMelech. Esther was taken against her will. Now, before Esther left, Mordechai told her, I didn't want you to go. You didn't want to go. You were forced. Obviously, there is a reason. Please promise me that you should not tell anyone that you're Jewish. Mordechai was smart. Mordechai was a tzaddik. Mordechai was a holy man. He was a prophetic man. He was able to see. He understood that something is happening. And the best is that nobody should know who Esther was. Just imagine, we know how the story went later. If somebody knew, if the people there knew that Esther was Jewish, then the whole thing wouldn't happen. We'll go on later. We'll learn about it. So he told her, don't tell anyone who you are. I want to tell you also why. Just tell a little bit, because we're not going to finish the story now. So keep it in suspense a little bit, but I'll tell you some now. We had learned before that Achashverosh was not from a royal family. So Mordechai understood that he's going to want to find the new queen should be from a royal family. Vashti was from a royal family, from a wicked royal family. How was Esther from a royal family? Esther was from the tribe of Binyamin. And the first king of the Jewish people, before King David, the first king was not from the tribe of Yehuda. He was from the tribe of Binyamin. It was King Saul, Shaul HaMelech, King Saul, Shaul. And he was a great-great-great-grandpa of Esther. Later, we'll learn more details. So Esther, first of all, by being a Jewish girl, she's already a princess, as the Jewish people are the chosen nation. And she was from a royal family. So Mordechai knew that if she is forced to go, there is a reason, and she should keep it as a secret, because maybe there will come a time that she will have to use it as a weapon to save the people. So better she shouldn't say. And he knew it's not going to be easy for her. And he told her, please, before she parted from him, he said, please don't tell anyone who you are. Keep it, your identity, keep it as a secret. You are from some country. He ruled over so many countries. And it's interesting because it does say that when Achashverosh had the beauty contest, and Esther went, because it says "Vayibi kavetz betolot shenit," when he had a second beauty contest. What does it mean? They went through, and he didn't like anyone, but he liked Esther. But Esther, he asked her, "What country are you from?" And she wouldn't tell him who she was. So he understood that she was probably from a very far away country that nobody knows, or she came from a family of poor people. It's sad to say, because somebody can be from a family of poor people. They can be very righteous, nice, wonderful people. But in those years, if you had money, then you're royalty. If you don't have money, then you're nothing. But so they thought probably she came from a very poor family. Maybe she came from a family of slaves. Maybe she came from, so she's embarrassed to say. And she wouldn't say. And then Achashverosh made a second beauty contest, and he still didn't like anybody, only Esther. Now, girls, the Megillah also says that when Esther was in the palace, remember we said they had to be in the palace for a whole year, and they were able to ask for creams and for jewelry and for clothing and for perfumes and for anything they want to make their face look good, clothes, whatever, to look beautiful, that the king should love them. It says, Lo biksha davar. Esther didn't ask for nothing. And the guy that was in charge of all the girls there, we had to bring them the stuff, he would always ask her, what do you want? She said nothing. She also ate very little bit. She was basically a vegetarian, because she wouldn't eat not kosher meat, not kosher chicken, not kosher whatever it was. So she would eat fruits and vegetables. And she was very skinny. She did not put anything on her face to look beautiful. And the king still liked her. She tried not to look attractive. She didn't want to look attractive. She tried to do anything she can not to be chosen. And then in the end, as we know, Esther was chosen. And here we are. I have to tell you something else that's very important for us to remember. Esther is sitting, it says, Achashverosh loved her from everybody. He gave her the scepter, and she is the queen. And he made a beautiful party, Mishte Esther, a party for Esther. He gave everybody many, gifts and so on and so forth. And it says, "En Esther mageret moladeta ve'etama." Esther is not telling anybody her country, her birthplace, who she is. Kasher tziva alea Mordechai, as Mordechai commanded her. As Mordechai was the Moshe of the generation. Mordechai was the Rebbe of the generation. And now, very interesting, before the end of the chapter 2, we're told a little story. And you think it's just one, how many sentences, it's 3 verses. And that story is very, very important. Let's try to remember it. It says that we know that Mordechai and Esther had some kind of they had some ministers would go back and forth and give them messages. Now, nobody suspected Esther was Jewish. Why? Because Esther was the queen, and Mordechai was one of the ministers of the king. So Esther was in touch with different ministers of the king, and one of them was Mordechai. So it doesn't mean just because she's in touch with him that he is related to her or that he is from the same nationality. And Mordechai is sitting at the gate of the king, and as he was one of the ministers, and all of a sudden he hears two people, Bigsan and Seresh, speaking. And it made him like he hears a language that nobody in Persia spoke. It wasn't Persian. It wasn't a language that they spoke in Shushan, the capital. And they were people that came from a faraway country. And they started speaking that language, and they weren't afraid to speak out loud because they knew that nobody speaks that language. They were the only ones, as far as they knew, that came from that country. And they weren't afraid to speak because they said nobody will understand them. But Mordechai did. How did Mordechai understand them? Mordechai, when the first Beit HaMikdash was still on, as I told you, Mordechai lived during the time of the destruction, unfortunately. He was one of the 71 Zikenim, of the 71 elders, of the 71 rabbis, of the 71 leaders who were in the Jewish court, in the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin had 71. Why? Because if you would ask a question, they had to vote. If you have 70, then you can have 35 and 35. This way, if you have 71, it was always one. If it was exactly half, then it would have been 36 and 35. Anyway, he was from those special, the Great Assembly. And Sheknes Tagdullah, the Great Assembly, the Sanhedrin. He was from the Sanhedrin. Now, according to Jewish law, when you have a court in the Beit HaMikdash, the way it was, if somebody is coming to a court, you're not allowed to take an interpreter, somebody who will a translator. I know that we always do it because not everybody speaks every language, but in Jewish law, you're not allowed to. Why? Because the way you speak, the judge can hear. When somebody is translating your words, you are coming and you have a case against someone else, or you're a witness and you want to say what you saw. If the person who translates is against you, or he's not against you, he's just, when he's translating, he's using a different word. Your body language, when you speak, when you say something, it says it all. So if the judge is listening to the translator, many times the judge can make a mistake because it's not the same. So imagine that the people who were in the Sanhedrin, they had to be such great people, such knowledgeable people, such geniuses, not only that they were able to understand, to know Torah and be geniuses in that, but they had to speak every language that existed at that time in the world, that if somebody is coming to them speaking that language, they had to be able to understand because they cannot take a translator. So that's how Mordechai understood that language, and they were sure that they didn't, so they weren't afraid to speak out loud. And what were they speaking about? Perhaps some of us remember. They were coming up with a plot how to kill, how to poison the king. They decided that they want to poison the king, they want to poison Achashverosh, they want to throw him off, they want to take the kingdom, they're going to marry Esther, I don't know who will marry him, her, both of them, whatever it is, they wanted to kill the king. And now Mordechai heard the whole story, all the details. And now he's sitting and he's thinking, why did I hear it? They could have spoken about it at night. They spoke about it during the day when I'm sitting at the gate, and they spoke about it loud. They weren't afraid, and they spoke in a language that I was able to understand. So obviously I have to learn something from it. And we spoke about it many times as well, girls, right? That everything that we hear and that we see, we have to learn something from it. Sometimes we see such terrible things, we hear such terrible things that we learn not to do it, or to try to teach someone else, or whatever it is. And many times, God willing, we should always see good things and we'll learn how to do it. Or we hear something and we see how can we help the situation, what can we do? And here Mordechai hears something so awful. In one hand, and when you say, well, Achashverosh was not necessarily a kind person, Everybody knew that Achashverosh did not like Jewish people. He was a Jew hater. But Mordechai says, if Hashem made me hear it, that means that I have to save the situation. Now, what can he do? So he told the story in a letter, whichever way, he told the story to Esther. And it says here, and he told Esther everything what happened. So Esther said, okay, she has to save the king. So she came to Achashverosh, and she told Achashverosh everything what she heard, but she didn't take the credit to herself. And this says also, Haomer, I'll say in Hebrew for those of us who speak Hebrew, Haomer davar b'shem omro mevi geula laolam. Haomer davar b'shem omro, when we repeat something in the name who we heard it from, in the name who said it, we give credit to that person, to that entity, to that wherever we learned it from, mevi geula laolam, we bring a redemption to the world. We will see later on how good it was that Esther said it to Achashverosh in Mordechai's name. She did not take the credit to herself. She could have just missed that point and say, look, that's what I heard. Somebody of the ministers told me. She told the king exactly what she heard through Mordechai, but she told him in the name of Mordechai. Mordechai was the person who told it to me, who said it to me. Obviously, they decided to put poison in the king wine or the king drink, whatever it is, from a snake. All the details. The king tried it out in the morning, not on himself. He gave it to an animal, to a dog, to drink the drink anyway. And the animal died right away. And obviously told him, look what you were going to give me to drink. And he hung both of them. Both Bigsan and Seresh were hung. Obviously, death penalty, they wanted to poison the king. And the king wrote it down. It says in the Megillah that he wrote it in his book, because the king used to have a book that, his memory book, his book that he used to write, Sefer Zichronot, like everything what happened. And this is something so essential. So two ministers of the king that he trusted decided to poison him, to kill him. And another minister found out and told the queen, and basically his life was saved. That's huge. So he wrote it in his book to remember forever. And we finished chapter 2. And now we're starting chapter 3. We're gonna have to finish our class soon. How does chapter 3 start? Chapter 3 starts that after all those things, what happened? The king decided, he forgot already everything what happened. He is happy that he has a new queen, and he is not angry anymore at Haman, and he makes Haman very, very important again, and making him one of his biggest ministers. Torah explains to us is that every time, unfortunately, it should never happen again, and Mashiach should come, amen. But during the times when the Jewish people suffered, when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, it was never with a country, with a nation that was very low, that was not important, that nobody cared enough. It was always with a country that was the ruler at that moment, at that time in the world. The first time that we suffered so much was with Mitzrayim. And Mitzrayim enslaved us and so us, but they enslaved everybody. Many people were there. It says that during the history of Mitzrayim, not even one slave ran out of Egypt, was able to escape. And here, the Jewish people, millions went out in the middle of the day. They were considered slaves. Mitzrayim was the most powerful country during that time in the world. So it wasn't embarrassing for the Jewish people that they enslaved them, because they enslaved everybody who they were able to. Later on, when the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, who did it? Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Bavel. The king of Bavel, Nebuchadnezzar, was a very wicked king. He did not conquer only Jerusalem, only Israel. He conquered many countries around in the Middle East, in that area. And Israel was one of them. So it wasn't embarrassing to the Jewish people that some small king that had no power, that was so weak, didn't have an army, whatever, and he won the Jewish people. No, he was a mighty king. He won many, many countries. And one of them was also Israel. It was very sad, but it wasn't embarrassing for the Jews. And here, Haman, the decree, unfortunately, is going to happen, to come. So Hashem said, okay, we're going to make Haman very important. Not only, later on also, the higher you are, the lower you fall. Obviously, it was a much bigger fall for Haman. But not only the Jews had to bow down to Haman, everybody. So it wasn't just something like against the Jews. Yeah, Haman made a decree. He was a big ruler. He made everybody do things for him. So it wasn't just the Jews. So it wasn't, if I may, embarrassing for the Jews, because it was a country that was very powerful, that was ruling over many countries, not just Israel. Well, now the Jewish people weren't in Israel, just some of them were there to keep the land going, right? As we know, he left some people there. And he became very, very important. And he decided that he wants everybody to bow down to him. The problem that was to bow down to Haman was that Haman was wearing a tselem. He was wearing an idol. It's like somebody who's wearing, and nowadays people don't wear idols like a little statue, but they wear a cross, right? And God forbid, we're not allowed to bow down to that. But he was wearing like a statue of an idol on him. And you bow down to him, you bow to the idol, and we're not allowed to bow down to people. We know that. We can bow down only to Hashem. As great as a tzaddik, as righteous Moshe, the Rebbe, the Rambam, all the Avraham, Yitzchak, we don't bow down to people. We honor tzaddikim. We respect them. But we don't bow down on the floor to them. We're not allowed. And we know the decree came. And this is something also that the Rebbe speaks a lot about Mordechai, and I would like to finish the class with that. Many Jewish people tried to avoid being where Haman is walking, because they knew that if you go where Haman is, everybody had to bow down to Haman, no matter if they're ministers, if they are old, if they are young, if they're with their children, no matter who they are, all the ministers, everybody had to bow down to Haman. Now, Mordechai, it says very strong, Mordechai lo yichre v'lo yishtachav, and the Rebbe used it so many times. The Mordechai did not bow down, and he did not even bend his head down, nothing, that nobody should even think that he was bowing down to Haman. When he would see Haman, he walked straight. He walked straight and tall and proud. And Haman is walking by, and everybody's bowing down and falling on the floor on his feet. And Mordechai the Jew, lo yichra v'lo yishtachave. And what the Rebbe said, what does Haman represent? In a spiritual sense, in a physical sense too. He was a wicked man. He represented, if somebody wouldn't bow down to him, then he said, they are dead. The king said that, that's all. So everybody was afraid for their life. Haman, and especially in a spiritual sense, he represented wickedness, things against humanity, against godliness, against things that are right, against things that are correct, and so on and so forth. Everything that is evil, Haman represented. We know Haman was from Amalek. Amalek was that nation that we did not finish killing, unfortunately, because they were all so rude and so evil that Hashem said to destroy that nation. And because we didn't, we'll discuss it, God willing, next week, we still have part of that nation with us. living in the world. And that's what Haman came. That's such a wicked person. Imagine to make such a decree to kill a whole nation. He said, men, women, children, babies, nursing babies, one day old, doesn't matter, to kill everybody in one day. What a wicked decree. What for? Look what the Nazis did. It was interesting because somebody mentioned to me on Shabbos that they saw a documentary of Hitler, not good or bad, just what he has done, whatever. And she says, I look at the picture and I saw his baby picture and think he's cute baby and look what he has done. And I thought about it, when Hashem said to destroy Amalek, unfortunately, that we didn't do because we thought, oh, the little kids did this. If we only knew, if somebody only knew what Hitler is going to do, what Mengele is going to do, how many millions of babies he killed in such terrible ways. Anyway, I don't want to go on. We all understand. We all know what I'm trying to say. But anyway, very, very sad. And here, many people, and Mordechai knew that he represents holiness. He represents Levika, you have to sleep. I guess the rabbi is going to him. He's still not sleeping. The little guy's calling me Bobby. Maybe he's listening to the story. Mordechai knew that this is a test. Mordechai knew that the Jewish people made a mistake with going to the party. Mordechai knew that many things are said that are happening. We're in exile. And Mordechai knew that we have to go back to build a second temple. We have to go back to Yerushalayim. We have to go back to Israel. What should we do? And here came another test. That everybody has to bow down to Haman, to evil, to people who are narcissistic, people who just want their own thing, people who are against Torah, against Judaism, against everything that is good in the world. He cannot bow down to that. He cannot agree with it. And he is not going to try to run away. He is not going to hide his necklace. He's not going to hide his kippah. He's not going to hide his modest clothing. He's not going to hide his beard. He's not going to go through a different door to the palace. He was also a minister. So he can find out when Haman is in and he can go, no. He wanted to make it open. He wanted to make it public. Mordechai lo yichra velo ishtachve. We are Mordechai. We are the nation of Mordechai. We are the nation of the Jewish people. Girls, when time comes, many times when things are difficult and we are in a situation, in a place that we feel that we have to bow down. I don't mean bow down with our heads to a cross, God forbid. God forbid we don't live in that era and we should never be tested like that. But we feel that we have to, that we are shy to show that we are Jewish. And we feel like we have to hide the fact that we are Jewish or that we believe in Torah or we are religious or whatever it is. And it's the same thing. We see a Haman. I'm standing somewhere in a, train station. How many kids, when we go to camp, to the zoo, many children, most children say, Miss Matzo, I don't want to wear my kippah. I'm in the zoo. I don't want everybody to see I'm Jewish. Or, we wear the t-shirt that says Camp Gan Israel. Oh, everybody knows we're. Yeah, that's what we learn from Mordechai. When we're in situations and we have to speak up, we shouldn't be afraid to speak up against Haman. If somebody is saying something better about the Jewish people, I should be the one to get up and say, if I know I'm not allowed to do something on Shabbat, and somebody doesn't know, and somebody is desecrating Shabbat, what I mean is laughing at it. I don't mean for you to go to somebody and say why you're driving or something like that and embarrass someone. But if somebody is saying publicly something against the Jews or something against the Torah, and you are there and you know that you can bring your right opinion, then you should. I'm standing in a group of friends and somebody is mocking, somebody is saying Lashon Hara, somebody is saying gossip, or somebody is mocking another friend that is in the circle or somebody else. They're not in the circle, they're just speaking something bad about someone. And it's not comfortable. I know, I've been there many times. It's not comfortable to get up and say, come on, let's stop it. Well, what are we sitting here and speaking bad about someone else, or whichever way? It's not easy to get up and say, let's stop it. Don't say something bad about another person, another Jewish person, another whatever. But we're learning from here, from the Megillah, Mordechai lo yichra velo yishtachave. Mordechai did not bow down. You know, when we say Aleinu, we say Vanachnu korim umishtachavim. It's the same verb, lo yichra velo yishtachave, if you can hear. Mordechai said, I'm not bowing down to idols, to things that are foreign, things that are wrong. Many people were angry at him. When the decree came, when Haman said, I'm too important, I am so special, and I'm so great, I am not just going to kill Mordechai, because he's not bowed down to me, so really he deserves death. I'm going to kill all the Jews, because he was from Amalek. He was that mean, wicked nation, and he was from them. And he wanted to kill all the Jews. He says, I'm going to take revenge, and I'm going to kill all the Jews. It was right after 9. And many people were angry at him, as I said. But we know that the reason that the decree came, not because of Mordechai, the opposite. It became because people have done many, many mistakes, unfortunately. And next week, I'm going to tell you something else, why Haman was so angry, and he would get so furious when he would see Mordechai, because Mordechai would show him a thing that we see here. All right, Mordechai, I'll share with you next week, God willing. In some years before, not in a previous life, but some years before, what did Haman do together with Mordechai? And now Haman he didn't want people to know what Mordechai knew about him and so on. And he wanted to he was very angry, he was very embarrassed of the past. Not that Mordechai did something wrong, but what Haman did. And he decided he wanted to get rid of him, wanted to take revenge of him. Not revenge, he wanted to get rid of him. Mordechai didn't do anything bad. He just wanted to kill him and the whole nation because he was so wicked. Have a good night. And God willing, we should have a good Shabbos, warm Shabbos, not just physically in our hearts. Let's all light candles for Shabbos, before Shabbos, and let's all remember that I'm Mordechai, the nation of Mordechai, which all of us are. We don't bow down to Goyishkat. We don't bow down to something that is wicked, evil against Torah. And we keep our priorities, we keep our principles, we do what is right, and we'll continue next week to go on more, to see how all those details that we're learning about, what a big difference it made in the end.
Thank you, Rochel.
Thank you, Rochel.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom, have a good Shabbos. All the best. And Eugenia, God willing, you'll have a nice walk, and you'll join us after Kiddush for lunch in our place.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Thank you.